Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. Thank you for joining me today. This is week 2 of the Master Gardener program. I have so much to share, so get your coffee. I have mine. I have my book. And this week we are going to learn all about botany. Basic botany, plant physiology, and plant classification. So this one's really, really important. This is very fundamental, and I vlogged a little bit, so I'm going to put a clip here. Y'all, it's Tuesday night at 5:30. You know what that means. It's day 2 or week 2 of Master Gardener program. So let's go. Well, we made it. No, it's a scorcher day. It's like 103 with humidity. Their plants are so pretty. Let's go get on the air conditioner and see what's going on today. Y'all, that was such a good class. There's so much information. I feel like my head's spinning, but it's such good and I can't wait to share it to y'all. All right, are y'all ready? Let's get into it. So the first thing we have is botany and plant physiology for Extension Master Gardeners. Let's see, the first clip was... This is a picture of a squash. And there's some more pictures of some plants. A beautiful lawn. Okay, let me read you the introduction. It is common to assume that botany, physiology, and taxonomy are academic rather than practical topics. While it is true that these subject areas can be complex and their study can lead to advanced degrees, it is also true that a basic introduction to these areas can help one be a better gardener. A basic understanding of plant function also prepares a master gardener to help others become better growers and stewards, which is a central goal of the program. Therefore, this chapter concentrates on basic botany and physiology topics that are of practical use in plant management and points out how we can apply them. The first 2 chapters of this manual presented an overview of the TMG program and key geographic and plant features for our beautiful state of Tennessee. Like I said, you can apply this to your own state, this or country. This chapter and the 3 that follow provide the foundation for an understanding of plant function and plant relationship with soil and water. The remaining chapters build on those concepts, presenting some gardening practices and useful information about ornamental and edible plants. So like I said, this is very fundamental. So let's see. And then we're going to get into plant parts and functions in relation to gardening, like root versus a shoot, reproductive versus vegetative parts, node versus internode, axillary versus apical bud. So let's get into the slideshow. Cell biology in 15 seconds. So this is what a cell looks like. You have the structure and the photosynthesis, photo meaning light, growth, metabolism, inheritance, and reproduction. So right here it says functions of leaf parts. Through a complex process called photosynthesis, leaves produce the carbohydrates that plants use for growth and other vital functions. Photosynthesis is the production of simple sugars from carbon dioxide and water using light for energy and releasing oxygen as a byproduct. The vast majority of life on our planet derives its energy directly or indirectly from photosynthesis. Isn't that cool? All right, here, this is going to take you back to 10th grade biology. This is what an inside of a plant cell is. It has the vacuole, cell wall, cell membrane, mitochondria, nucleus, cytoplasm, chloroplast, and vacuole. Here is a diagram of a typical plant. You can see the shoots grow, it looks like above ground, and roots are beneath the ground. You have your primary root there, root hairs, your root cap, your lateral root, and then in the shoots you have your flower, apical bud, axillary bud, your nodes, internodes, leaf blades, leaf axil, and petiole. So this is what a shoot is. The parts of the plant above the soil surface are generally referred to as the shoot. Nodes are points along the stem where leaves are attached. Axillary buds are one or more buds are usually found in the leaf axil at the node where the leaf is attached. These buds are called axillary buds. Apical bud is every growing shoot ends in a bud cell called a terminal. So you've probably heard of a terminal. Okay, very, very, very cool. So what do they do? Roots and shoots. Roots are anchor plants. They're going to grab on, root out, and that dirt is going to support them. They're going to anchor the plant in. They absorb water from rain or when you water from the hose and minerals from the ground. And it stores excess foods. Shoots, they support the plant. The leaves, it photosynthesizes, and flower and reproduction. And here is a carrot, which is a root. Some more plants here. We have, I believe that's a dogwood. We have an eggplant, cauliflower. These are roots, like a radish. Not sure what that is. And then even ginger. Okay, let's start with stems. What a master gardener should know about stems. A detailed understanding of stem structure and function can aid in describing and organizing plants. Flowering plants are generally divided into two broad groups called monocots and dicots. These groups differ in many ways, but one of the most distinctive is their stem structure. So let's get into it. Okay, gardeners and stems. We have an apical and axillary, dicot and monocot, herbaceous and woody, nodes and internodes. Here is a picture of a monocot and a dicot. What it looks like. See, this one has a little bit more layers. This dark one, the ring has like a phloem layer, a cambium layer, xylem and pith. That's a dicot. Di meaning two, mono meaning one. Mono just has a phloem and a xylem. So what is all that? Let's read the characteristics of a typical mature dicot stem. Most woody plants and gardeners are dicots. Mature woody dicot stems consist of rings of wood, the xylem, surrounded by rings of bark, phloem. Where the xylem and the phloem meet is a layer of tissue called the cambium, where cell division and expansion occurs. Providing growth and girth of the system, the cambium layer is thin and dry during the winter when plants are dormant and becomes much thicker and moist, or even slimy when plants are actively growing. The cambium layer is thicker during the growing season because nearly all of the xylem and phloem cells in the plant are produced by the cambium layer. Now let's read characteristics of typical monocot stems. The monocot stem is very different from the dicot stem. Monocot stems contain bundles of vascular tissue, xylem and phloem, sit in a generalized pithy tissue rather than rings. Furthermore, there is no cambium tissue in a vascular bundle of a mature monocot plant, as there is a dicot, as in dicot stems. Because mature monocot stems lack cambium tissue, the monocot stem does not enlarge in diameter once it reaches the stage of initial maturity. Agave, asparagus, bananas, cannas, daylilies, hostas, irises, lilies, many flowering bulbs, onions, orchids, palm trees, pineapples, sedges, yuccas, all of the grasses, including bamboo, sugarcane, and corn, are examples of monocots. Nearly all other plants in the garden are likely to be dicots. Now let's read about a moment on meristems. Purposes for cell division and cell elongation. Right here it says development of the root. The three major zones of root growth are illustrated in figure 3. The merismatic region is at the root tip and manufactures new cells. It is covered with a root cap of loose cells that are constantly rubbing away and being replaced as the root pushes through the soil. The root cap itself is covered by a layer of slick and slimy mucilage that helps to ease movement through the soil. Very little root elongation occurs in the merismatic zone. Apical and axillary, the primary is primary growth. The growth of axillary buds is controlled by plant hormones. Apical buds contain plant hormones called auxins that inhibit the growth of nearby axillary buds. Removing an apical bud reduces the auxin level and allows nearby axillary buds to begin growth, which influences many aspects of plant management. If axillary buds grow, they may become flowers or shoots depending on whether they are flower or vegetative buds. Kind of like roses, I guess when you deadhead some flowers, it will regrow a flower. It's very healthy for the plant. And this is shown what an apical stem looks like, and then there's an axillary. And application of apical dominance, pruning and pinching. A lot of people do this with their fruit trees. Intercalary meristems, monocots like grass is that. We're going to get into nodes and internodes. Nodes are points where leaves attach, usually found in leaf axil. Internodes are the stems in between. The application of nodes and internodes, their dwarf, response to environment, and selecting transplants. What is in a stem? We've kind of already went through a little bit of this. Xylem and phloem, the vascular tissue. Dicot is xylem, phloem, and a ring with cambium in between. Monocot is xylem and phloem and small bundles and pithy tissue in a stem. What does the xylem do? Xylem transports water and minerals. Movement depends on water properties. Leaf transpiration provides the pull. And this little diagram shows the phloem transports sugars, amino acids, and hormones. And then we're going to learn about phytoplasm in the phloem. Here's another diagram, kind of like what I showed you with the dicots and monocots. It shows you kind of like the layers of a dicot, the phloem, cambium layer, the xylem, and the pith, and then the monocot has the phloem and the xylem. So that's what inside stem looks like. How are plants classified? They are either classified non-vascular or vascular. Non-vascular have no vessels, no roots, no stems or leaves, basically spores. And vascular have vessels to transport food and water. They have roots, stems, and leaves. Example, grass, corn, trees, flowers, bushes. These are broken down into gymnosperms and angiosperms. I wonder what we'll learn next. Gymnosperms, they're naked seeds. Cone-bearing plants, seeds grow on cones. Needle-like leaves usually stay green year-round. And an example would be pine trees and evergreens. Angiosperms, they're flowering plants. Seeds are enclosed in fruit. Most are pollinated by birds and bees, have finite growing seasons. Examples are grasses, tulips, oaks, and dandelions. We love a dandelion here, don't we? Divided into two main groups, monocots and dicots, which we learned. What is a monocot? Has one seed, cotyledon. Oh my gosh, I messed that up. Parallel leaf veins, fibrous roots, flower parts in threes, vascular tissue scattered. Examples, most fruits, flowers, and palms. And that is a monocot. It looks like an iris, maybe. It shows like the flower petals, usually in multiples of 3. Smooth, often narrow leaves. Parallel veins, vascular tissue scattered throughout the stem, and a fibrous root system. And that is a little diagram I kind of showed you. Okay, what is a dicot? Has 2 seeds, leaves, cotyledon. Let me look it up. Okay, I believe it's a cotyledon. Has a network of veins and leaves, primarily taproots, flower parts in 4s or 5s, vascular tissue in rings. So it says usually 4 to 5 flower petals, net-like veins, vascular bundles arranged in a ring, and has taproots. How else are plants classified? Well, by their life cycle. You've heard of annuals, biennials, and perennials. Annuals are plants that germinates, grows, and dies in one growing season, and then they're done. That's going to be your big impact, like petunias and stuff like that. Examples are radishes, corn, many wildflowers, some of your vegetables like tomatoes. Biennials, a plant that germinates, grows, and dies in 2 growing seasons. Examples, cabbage, beets, carrots. I believe like a foxglove is a biennial. And then your perennials. A plant that germinates, grows, and dies over more than a 2-season period, 3 or more. Examples, boxwood shrub, palo verde, mesquite. Very interesting examples. Out of just went with Chamaecyparis or Lorpetalum. You know what a perennial is, and that's what inside maybe of a looks like a monocot, and it looks like maybe a microscope. Another interesting thing. Okay, now let's talk about herbaceous and woody. Secondary growth. It's present in dicots, vascular cambium, cork cambium. That looks like a crepe myrtle. Then application to grafting. You can graft tree, fruit, ornamental plants, vegetables. Grafting. In grafting of woody plants, a small portion of a dormant plant, a stem, tip, or bud is removed and attached to a second plant where it can grow and mature. The part removed is generally called a scion, or bud, and the part in which the scion is attached is called the stalk, or rootstock. When the graft grows, the top of the plant above the graft has the characteristics of the scion, or bud, while the stalk remains its original characteristics. If a graft is to take, or survive, and the 2 parts are to grow, the scion of the stalk must come from closely related plants. For example, if it is possible to graft between 2 pear varieties or bear pear and quince, but not between pear and apple or plum. Also, the graft union must be kept from drying out until callus tissue forms and xylem and phloem tissues unite and begin growth. That is why graft unions are covered with grafting wax, plastic parafilm, and similar materials that restrict the passage of water. So, potential uses for grafted tomatoes. Rootstocks can have resistance to soil-borne diseases or nematodes. Useful for heirloom growers. Also, rootstocks can be more vigorous and improve growth. Vegetable diseases that could be addressed with rootstocks. Fusarium wilt, southern blight, root knot nematode, and bacterial wilt, and verticillium. What are the three types of roots? You have tap roots, fibrous roots, and adventitious roots. Tap roots absorb water deep in the ground, like carrots, pecan trees. Fibrous roots stay close to topsoil, tomato and bedding plants. And then adventitious helps plant climb or anchor, ivy, strawberries, some grasses. Like right now, I have some Virginia creeper in my backyard, and it has these it reminds me of kind of like an octopus. They have these little suckers, and those would be called adventitious roots, I believe. What are the parts of a root? Primary root, the first root to grow. Secondary root is the branch off the primary root, and root hairs. These account for 95% of water absorption. And that's just kind of what a root would look like. You have your zone maturity, zone elongation, meristematic zone, root cap, and then your root hairs. That's part of a root. The root tip is the meristem, cell division, elongation, and differentiation. Vascular tissue functions in water uptake, endodermis, vascular tissue in different pattern. Applications. So roots can be edible, like carrots. It's good for transplanting, inoculation, symbiosis, and roots not in soil. That looks like lady slippers. Then we had to take a little break, had some coffee and a couple cookies, and then we got back into it. Here's what we're in chapter 3. So let's get into leaf functions. The purpose is to collect sunlight, carry out photosynthesis, and maintain water balance. So why should we know about leaves? Leaves grow to many shapes and sizes, providing a stunning combination of beauty and utility that can enthrall poets and physiologists alike. This section focuses on leaves that have one or more leaf blades, usually attached to a petiole that in turn is attached to a plant stem. As opposed to needles of evergreen trees, which are also leaves, there's an illustration, cross-section of typical leaf in its main parts and would be seen through a microscope. Leaf basics. So we have, it looks like, the cutin, kind of reminds me of like a cuticle layer. They even have an epidermis, like our skin, a palisade layer, spongy parenchyma layer, and those consist of the mesophyll layer. You have your stoma, your guard cell, stoma, and epidermis. That's what that diagram shows. So let's get into what all those do. Application, edible leaves, modified leaves, and adaptation to environment. Let's see what responses to environment. This diagram just shows water, oxygen, energy release, sugar, breakdown, carbon dioxide, water, and sun and chlorophyll, oxygen, sugar, water, and then the roots get the nitrogen, phosphorus, potash, calcium, and other elements, which we will learn all about soil and minerals and nutrients next week. Here's a diagram of a flowering part. In that diagram, it showed respiration and photosynthesis. Respiration is like water, oxygen, and then the leaves do the photosynthesis. Now this diagram shows a flowering part. So let's read about what the flowers do. The primary system of a plant classification is based on flower structure, and thus knowledge of flowers is essential to plant classification and to gardening. A generalized complete flower has four main parts: sepals, petals, stamens, and a pistil. Not all flowers have all four parts. Flowers that lack one or more three parts is called incomplete flowers. So there's the stigma, style, the placenta, ovules, ovary, pistils or carpel, the anther, filament, stamen, petal, corolla, sepal, calyx. There's a pretty flower there. Some more flowers. Looks like a maybe squash flower. So let's look what dioecious is. Monocots and dicots. Monocots are floral parts in groups of 3. Dicots, floral parts in groups of 4 or 5. Here's a picture of reproduction overview. That just looks like a seed. I won't get too into that. Pollination, application. Cross-pollination, hard kernels in our sweet corn, apples, and peaches. Do we need pollinators, trees, or not? It says sometimes plants are grown for the flowers, in which case the number of flowers and their appearance and quality are of utmost importance. In other cases, the production of fruits, berries, or other results of pollination and fertilization are the objective. It is important to bear in mind that without fertilization, there will be no seed development of any kind, and it is thus necessary to determine whether a plant is self-pollinated or cross-pollinated. If a plant is cross-pollinated, the grower must determine whether the main agent of pollination is an insect or wind, and whether a second plant of another variety, or even whether a specific plant or type of plant, as with pecans, is needed. Of course, cross-pollination requires that the plant varieties flower at the same time. With some plants, such as blueberries, fruit set will occur without cross-pollination, but more and larger fruit will be produced if pollinators are present. Here is growth requirement in Tennessee. It's just, you can look up a USDA zone that will tell you how cold hardy you are. Flower initiation, long day plant, short night with spinach. Short day, long night is poinsettias and chrysanthemums. That's why chrysanthemum is a good fall plant. Says long ago, when physiologists first began to study plants, it was discovered that some, but not all, plants respond to specific critical day length by flowering, a characteristic called photoperiodism. Plants that flower whenever days are longer than critical length were referred to as long day plants, and those that flowered when days were shorter than a critical length were referred to as short day plants. Hardiness factors is moisture, hardening, and plant parts. And this diagram shows how many chill hours. So we are, looks like, kind of blue, light blue, so maybe 1600 chill hours. That's kind of like for stratification, I believe. Chilling hours in blueberries or brazzleberries. Peach sorbet is 300 hours or less. Jelly bean is 1,000 hours or more. Classification and taxonomy. This is kind of, again, going back to 10th grade biology. You learn about the kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species. And a typical one would be a cat. So you've heard of, it's part of the Animalia kingdom, Chordata phylum. It's a mammal, carnivore, a feline, and then species catus, and we shorten it to cat. So this is another example with a hydrangea. Another cool thing I learned is the L. If you go down to genus, hydrangea L refers to the genus being described by Carl Linnaeus. He is the one that named it. Why do we care about Latin names? Well, it's good to proper plant purchase, disease and pest susceptibility. There's so many like varieties and cultivars. If you knew exactly what it is, you probably could pinpoint the disease or the pest. Crop rotation, and then taxonomy really helps classification and ID. That's the first thing. What you're supposed to do is if you have a troubled plant, you have to identify it. What kind of plant is it? And that will tell you a lot right there. Basically, you're going to ask yourself, is it a monocot or dicot? Use leaf venation, floral part, and how are the leaves arranged? You can also identify it with the leaf shape. I didn't realize how many leaf shapes there were. It's just crazy. Yeah, look at all this too. Oh my gosh. So that looks, if I can read, it looks like elliptical, linear. It looks like a spatula, but it's spatulate, ovate to oval, cordata. But wait, there's more. Yeah. Leaf margins, like how it's made, kind of like between like an oak leaf. And there's entire, crenate, dentate, serrate, double serrate, incise, lacerate, ciliate, cleft, parted. There's only half of them. And the features, acutate, aristate, cuspidate, obtuse, emarginate, cordate, sagittate. There's a lot. And then you can identify with the roots. Flower and root questions. Is a root system tap or fibrous? Are all four floral parts present? What is the floral structure? Kind of like it reminds me of hydrangea. There's like a paniculata. There's a mop head. Kind of like the flower forms, and those kind of look like dandelions a little bit. I don't know if this diagram is in this book or not. So we'll move forward. How do plants respond to the environment? Response to a stimulus in the plant's environment. Gravitropism. Gravity tells the plants where the ground is. Kind of like a pendula or weeping trees. Phototropism responds to sunlight. Hydrotropism responds to water, hydro. Thigmotropism responds to touch. Chemotropism responds to chemicals. And that brought us to the end of the class. So like I said, when I got out of that class, I kind of condensed it. This is a 3-hour long course, and it was a lot. So hopefully you stuck with me till the end. So I'm going to leave you with this. I like this saying, you can be too heavenly minded to be of any earthly good. So you can know all this information, but unless you actually do it, put your faith into action, put your knowledge to action, go out and do it. I learn best by trial and error. So if you kill a plant, that's a great learning opportunity. So don't be too scared. Just Nike, just do it. So I want to encourage you to go out into your garden today, and I will catch you on the next one. Hope you're liking these Master Gardener class. Be looking forward to week 3. We learn all about soils and minerals and fertilizers. So I will catch you on the next one. Bye, y'all.